Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. So, speaking of companies that don't know what they're doing, Rivian had realized that the price of everything has in fact gone up and has tried to increase the price of pre-orders retroactively by as much as $20,000. Now, because the number of people who could afford a $20,000 price hike and just kind of shrug at it is somewhere between 0 and none, everyone disliked this. I mean, do you blame them? If you went ahead and just like, yeah, I wouldn't mind a new revolutionary high-end pickup truck that's all electric for 60K. Oh, I'm sorry, now it's 80K. What the heck? Someone in chat asked, did they offer full refunds? We're getting to that, actually, because the thing is that the electric car market decided to steal the very, very bizarre way of doing business that Tesla kind of invented by going ahead and saying that you can go ahead and put down a small amount, usually about $1,000, to reserve one of these trucks that only exist in your imagination. And then you just pay the rest when it's actually real. A model, by the way, that is being widely adopted in the electric vehicle space, and one of which I still want to know how they keep getting away with it. Because it opens the door for exactly this. Like exactly this. Or, you know, it also opens up the door for what a lot of Tesla people are going to see, and that's that the Cybertruck and the Tesla Semi will just decide to not exist. I'm telling you, those two trucks are just going to refuse to exist. Although new footage of updated Cybertrucks has hit the web, so maybe that atrocious polygon abomination will actually hit the streets and will make you question whether your eyes have downgraded to N64 graphics rather than, you know, real life. I still don't get it either. But there's been no evidence that the Tesla Semi is going to see anything, or the Roadster for that fact. The Tesla Roadster is another one I think is just never going to see the light of day at this point. Well, after everyone had looked at Rivian and said, you can't do this, man. We're going to cancel our orders because this is absolutely ridiculous. Give me my refundable deposit now. Rivian has backtracked on this. Anyone who had ordered a Rivian R1T since before March 1st will be able to pay the previous price, and all people from there on forward pay the new price, which is now $20,000 higher. Now, before we start looking at Rivian and saying, wow, that's a whole lot of greed, let's also be real for a second. The price of everything since when Rivian first designed this truck has gone up, especially in the electronics department. The chips and everything, battery controllers, the batteries themselves, there's a supply issue with them, and thus the price has gone up drastically. So I don't think this is Rivian trying to go ahead and say, hey, we top dog now. We first electric pickup truck on the roads. We're going to go ahead and cash in on this. I believe this is Rivian looking at their numbers and going, wow, we are barely making any money doing this. and barely able to pay our staff because the price of doing business has gone up so much. We need to increase the price or else we could go under. I do believe this price hike is more survival rather than trying to impersonate Bobby Kotick. Let's talk about Russia, shall we? Oh, Russia. How many of you know what the Iron Curtain is? And if any of you say a super weapon in the Red Alert franchise, I mean, you're not wrong, but you're also wrong. The Iron Curtain is a concept from way back in the early Soviet Union days of isolating citizens of the Soviet Union from information outside of the Soviet Union. So that all within the Soviet Union at the time would only learn what the Soviets wanted you to learn. That was the concept of the Iron Curtain. We are starting to see that take place now, which is absolutely fascinating. Considering, you know, you're in the digital age. I can literally learn anything I want at the push of a couple taps. Couple buttons, a few minutes later, I can learn anything with about a 70% success rate. I do have to put that little caveat in there because there's way too many bad YouTube videos out there. So, how is this new virtual Iron Curtain being formed? Well, let's start with the current updates. Apple has stopped all sales in Russia, period. No Apple devices are now being sold within Russia to its citizens, to the government, to companies, no one. All of Russia cut off. In addition, all state-owned media outlets from all Russian state-owned media outlets on the Apple app stores pulled, gone. No information out of Russian outlets on iOS, which I'm a little disappointed because I do like to hear what the opposition has to say, but granted, I pretty much know what they're all going to say at this point, and it is absolute propaganda. There's no other way to describe it. But of course, it advances from there. A lot of these moves are affecting Russian currency as well, as the value of their currency has dropped drastically. This also is accompanied by the fact that many of Russia's electronics platforms are being attacked by Anonymous. I know it's been a while since we've heard Anonymous actually do something that wasn't stupid. But they're going ahead and taking down various infrastructure. We have even more companies pulling out of Russia, including Apple, Disney, and I already mentioned Apple, Disney, and Ford, also dialing back all operations in Russia. Exxon is also quitting its last Russian project. Boeing is pulling out of Moscow as well. BP and Shell also distancing themselves from Russia. Warner Media entirely is just no longer releasing films in Russia. Someone in chat says there's no sales in Russia from Electronic Arts. Honestly, I think that's a win for Russia. I think Russia got the better end of that one. Meanwhile, on the opposite end, Russia is holding out its OneWeb rocket, saying that they're not going to go ahead and allow anyone else to use it to send supplies to the International Space Station. Although, you know, now that I say that about EA, I myself have had a long boycott of buying anything EA related. I had to break it recently because I couldn't find the CD codes for my old Command and Conquer game, so I ended up rebuying it from EA. That means that no one in Russia can play any of the Red Alert games now. Aw, feels bad. Oh, someone's gave me a correction. The OneWeb is a satellite internet constellation like Starlink, not an International Space Station vehicles. My bad. My bad. Thank you for the correction. Now, to then advance this cyber war going against Russia, Ukraine is forming an IT army of their own, specifically finding cyber specialists to go ahead and take part in this cyber war. And it's not like they haven't been successful already. Many electric vehicle chargers within Russia refuse to charge vehicles and just have on the display in Russian, Putin is a dickhead. And then having the message scroll, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. I mean, I personally would prefer a message of one that's a bit more informative, but you know, still nice. This also being said, you know how I go out of my way to set up my own personal server in the other room, my own personal cloud for all my own internal services. I'm just going to chalk this whole thing up to another point of that. Could you imagine if you had an electric vehicle and you need a charge between work and home, and the entire thing is now shut down, and you know another country is responsible for that? I don't know if that's really helping our cause here, to be perfectly honest. I say our, but I mean, it's Ukraine's cause. I just support them in their fight to continue existing. Just keep trying. And then, of course, Twitter is labeling more tweets from Russia media outlets so that you know when it is just straight up part of the Russian propaganda outlet. The person in chat earlier that was talking about the OneWeb rocket wanted to clarify that it is in fact that OneWeb is sponsored by, or sponsored part. No, actually, sponsored is the right word because it's part funded, partly sponsored by the UK government. So that's also important to know. It is basically Russia holding United Kingdom property hostage almost. So, of course, Putin couldn't just let this all go. Russia has cut itself off completely from Facebook and Twitter. So now you start to see how this information wall, this iron curtain, begins to cut us off. We're starting to see stuff that is more akin to what you'd see in the Cold War. The biggest difference here is that, actually, no, this is actually very close to it. I actually didn't say what the big difference is because I, as much as I know history, I am not well versed in the exact details of the Cold War. I pretty much know the majority gist of it, like most people do. Oh, and then, you know what I love even more as far as this whole Iron Curtain, the blocking of information, and all that wonderful jazz? Russia demanded that Google block false, in massive air quotes, false ads about the Ukrainian war. Yeah, Google's not about to go ahead and let Russia control completely the amount of information that's out there. Because keep in mind, Russia's trying to claim that Ukraine is run by a bunch of Nazi fascists, which is not true. There is absolutely no evidence of such a thing. So anything saying contrary, they want silenced. Yeah, that's not how this is going to work. Like, at all. Now, within Russia, within this Iron Curtain, what do? You're a innocent Russian civilian, and you want to know what the heck is going on. But you suspect your state media is just straight up lying to you. Because you've seen all sorts of things on Facebook, Twitter, other news outlets that say to the contrary, and now you can't access them. What do? Why? The same thing I do. You turn to the BBC. It is absolutely fascinating how pretty much everyone's go-to when it comes to getting a second opinion about news is the BBC. I love that this is the standard even in Russia as well. What the heck do people in the UK do then? The BBC is their primary source. Who do they go to for their secondary? The Verge? God, I'd hope not. But now, with Russians trying to get information from somewhere they can trust, of course, moves are being done to isolate that as well. Someone in the chat says it's ironic given that the BBC is also state media. This is true. It is. But hey, I say it is always good to hear from multiple sources and to know what is the background of those sources. That is the important thing. Always keep that in mind. But of course, now Russia is trying to go ahead and block access to the BBC. So what are people doing now? Well, the BBC is now just being broadcast on shortwave radio. Go ahead and censor that! We're going old school. What a time. What a time. This is... To say that right now is surreal is an understatement, to say the least. Now, Russia has gone ahead and passed a new fake news law, which could give offenders up to 15 years in prison. Because if you want to try and go ahead and say that you are in fact the kind free nation liberating a fascist controlled Ukraine, you pass laws that control the spread of information strictly. Yep, that's that's the right decision. Clearly. This was clearly the right decision. Good job, Russia. Good job. Yeah, you showed us. You showed us that you're the people that stand for freedom and not fascists. Yeah. Now, of course, what do you do then? What is the biggest blow you could strike? To go ahead and have no more bad information spread out of Russia, to try and spread their message that's looking more and more fascist. Well, there's a very easy way. You go to the body of the internet that controls internet access and try to shut down domain names. To go to ICANN to shut down internet domain names. And that's exactly what Ukraine did. They went to ICANN. So what did they have to say? Well, ICANN denies Ukrainian request to shut down Russian internet domains. Now, before anyone tries to say that tries to say anything reckless about what I'm about to say, I agree with ICANN. This is absolutely the correct answer. Because if we go ahead and use ICANN to shut down Russian domains, we're no better. I'm sorry, it's just true. So, Russian domain names will stay up. My phone is chirping a storm because all of a sudden a winter weather advisory was issued for my area starting tomorrow morning. Oh, wow. 2 to 5 inches. Dang. Impressive. And, well, that's the story of the Russian Iron Curtain. And what's going to be weirder is that we're going to be seeing more and more of these kind of stories. There's no other way around that. This thing is going to escalate. And considering the fact that this war is now taking a cyber turn, you're going to see more and more and more internet service companies try to shut off their services to Russia, and Russia trying to cut off more services to the rest of the world. Fortunately for us, Russia doesn't have a whole lot of services that we rely on a day-to-day basis. They have their own internal kind of search engine equivalent to Google. It's called Yandex. And a lot of other services that Russia offers via the internet are pretty much Russian exclusive already. But now, will they try to go ahead and hit other services? Could we see them try to go ahead and wage a cyber attack on other outlets? Possibly. We will just have to wait and see. Although, could you imagine if a Russian attack took down Google? Think of all the Chromebooks that wouldn't function anymore. Yeah, I figured out a way to bring Chromebooks into this. I figured out a way to go ahead and rip on Chromebooks. In all seriousness, though, that actually is a legitimate concern. It could actually happen. And considering the fact that Chromebooks basically are just a thin client connecting to Google services, what would function on a Chromebook if Google went down? If you had downloaded Android apps, would those at least still function? But I first started this up as like a bit to rip on Chromebooks, but now I'm actually curious. Huh. Would they even run, or would they still try to ping the Google servers and then fail to do so would just cease to function? We're going to take, well, we'll probably not have the answer when we come back, but we're going to take a break regardless. And when we come back, Activision Blizzard. Yes, they're in the news again. Whoo boy.